She was an icon of royal beauty and intellect, who almost became Queen of England in a marriage that could have fundamentally reshaped history. But what truly happened when the notoriously brutal King Henry VIII laid eyes on this young woman and was so utterly captivated that he sent his most renowned painter to capture her likeness? Was it a fated romance, or a miraculous escape from the grim destiny shared by Henry's other wives? The life of Christina of Denmark, Duchess of Milan and Lorraine, truly encompassed it all, from exile and child marriage to personal tragedy and resounding diplomatic triumphs. And in the ultimate twist of fate, Henry VIII himself opposed her second marriage, even though he never managed to marry her. Today, we will unveil the untold stories of Christina, the remarkable woman who escaped Henry VIII and forged an extraordinary, unexpected life for herself. Christina was born in late 1521 or early 1522, the daughter of King Christian II of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, and Queen Isabella of Austria. What makes her lineage particularly fascinating is her exceptionally close blood ties to the most powerful dynasties of Europe at the time. She was the niece of England's Queen Catherine of Aragon, the first wife abandoned by Henry VIII, and later the primary reason Henry could not marry Christina himself. Furthermore, she was also the niece of Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, a pivotal figure who would profoundly influence her entire life. Yet Christina's life was far from a bed of roses from an early age. In 1523, when she was barely 2 years old, her father was deposed and imprisoned indefinitely. Her entire family was forced to flee Denmark, and Christina would never be able to return to her homeland again. Tragedy compounded when her mother, Queen Isabella, passed away at just 24, leaving Christina and her siblings orphaned. From then on, Christina grew up under the guardianship of her aunts, first Margaret of Austria and later Mary of Hungary, both regents of the Low Countries. Despite being exiled princesses, Christina and her sister Dorothea were young, beautiful, and exceptionally well-educated women. More importantly, they held legitimate claims to the thrones of Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. This made them among the most sought-after marriage candidates in Europe, but simultaneously transformed them into strategic pawns in the ruthless political chessboard of royal dynasties. So how did the life of an exiled princess, far from her homeland since childhood, shape her character and resilience in later years? Could it be that these very early tragedies forged her into the extraordinary woman she became? As early as 1527, when Christina was still just a child, interest emerged from England. Henry VIII sought to marry her to his illegitimate son, Henry Fitzroy, Duke of Richmond. However, the Habsburg family, with their immense pride and royal stature, had absolutely no interest in a boy born out of wedlock and without a genuine claim to his father's throne. That aspiration quickly dissolved. The first major turning point in Christina's life arrived in 1533, with the signing of a marriage treaty between her and Francesco Sforza, Duke of Milan. Just imagine, Christina was then only 11.5 years old, while Francesco was a man 27 years her senior and in very poor health. This was by no means a love match, but rather a strategic maneuver by the Habsburg family to gain control over the Italian states. Christina's aunt, Mary of Hungary, was deeply displeased and vehemently opposed this marriage. She wrote to her brother, Emperor Charles V, expressing profound concern. The child is not old enough to marry and live with her husband. She is still a child, and whatever the customs of that country may be, you are putting her at risk of becoming pregnant at too young an age, and she could lose both her life and her child. She emphasized that marrying and sleeping with her husband at 11.5 was against God's law and reason, as the minimum age permitted by the Church was 12. However, Emperor Charles V's attitude was chillingly cold and ruthless. He dismissed all of his sister's concerns, deeming any claims about Christina's health useless and asserting that the Duke of Milan was too frail to consummate the marriage, despite knowing full well that this was not true. This starkly reveals that for Charles V, Christina was merely a disposable pawn on the chessboard of European royal marriages, and her health or happiness mattered far less than political gain. Fortunately, Aunt Mary was not easily swayed. She cleverly delayed Christina's journey to Milan until February of the following year, which was after the young girl's 12th birthday. Although a marriage by proxy still had to be accepted, Christina was granted precious extra time. Upon her arrival in Milan, she was described by one observer as beautiful as the sun itself. The Duke of Milan seemingly treated his young bride kindly, showering her with precious gifts and hunting parties. And most fortunately, Christina did not become pregnant. Yet this marriage was not destined to last. In late 1535, when Christina was just 13 years old, Francesco Sforza died right beside her. Christina became a young widow, though she also inherited the city of Tortona. How did this first marriage shape Christina? Did she begin to realize her true worth was more than just a pawn? Or did this very tragedy awaken her to the tumultuous fate of a princess in a constantly shifting royal world? In October 1537, once again, Henry VIII, the 46-year-old King of England, found himself a widower when Queen Jane Seymour died just 2 weeks after giving birth to Prince Edward. Thus, the relentless machine of finding a new wife for Henry was once more set in motion. And among a multitude of potential candidates across Europe, Christina, the young and beautiful Duchess of Milan, swiftly became one of Henry VIII's most favored choices. Although for Christina, Henry VIII was likely just one of many suitors at that time, his interest left a peculiar mark on history. English ambassadors in Flanders sent back detailed reports praising her appearance and charm. John Hutton, one of these ambassadors, described Christina, then 16, as very tall, taller even than her regent aunt, possessing outstanding beauty, a gentle voice, and a soft countenance. She wore Italian-style mourning clothes, a stark image that nevertheless failed to obscure her natural beauty. Thomas Wriothesley, Thomas Cromwell's secretary, even praised Christina with even more fervent words, declaring that no one in this region could equal the Duchess in beauty and lineage. He described her as having a singularly beautiful countenance, and when she smiles, 2 dimples appear on her cheeks and one on her chin, which makes her excellently beautiful. Even her slight stutter was noted as not diminishing her beauty in the slightest. Henry was so utterly enchanted that he did something unprecedented to gain the most authentic glimpse of this princess. In March 1538, he dispatched his most famous court painter, Hans Holbein the Younger, to paint Christina's portrait. Hutton reported that Holbein had only 3 hours to complete the preparatory sketches, yet the final portrait was judged to be highly perfect, showcasing the artist's masterful talent. So, how beautiful was this portrait that it could so utterly captivate a notoriously discerning monarch like Henry VIII? Some modern historians even note an unexpected resemblance between Christina in Holbein's portrait and the renowned actress Millie Bobby Brown, especially when she embodies the character of Eleven in Stranger Things. Do you see the resemblance? Around the story of Christina of Milan and Henry VIII, a famous anecdote has circulated for centuries. It claims that Christina allegedly refused Henry VIII with a biting and audacious remark: "If I had 2 heads, one would be at the King of England's disposal." This was a clear, scathing allusion to the tragic fates of 2 of Henry's previous wives, Anne Boleyn, beheaded in 1536, and Catherine Howard, beheaded in 1542. The statement showcased her daring and clear awareness of the peril involved in marrying this wife-killing king. However, the historical reality is somewhat more complex. Although rumors circulated in 1538 that Christina had spoken ill of the king, she denied them. Furthermore, this 2 heads quote is considered an anecdote, with no historical evidence preceding the 17th century, meaning it emerged long after Christina's death. This indicates that, while it sounds authentic and fits her image, it was not the actual reason for the failed negotiations. So what was the true reason Henry VIII's dream marriage to Christina collapsed? This is an aha moment in the story. The core issue wasn't with Christina herself, but with the complex relationship between Henry and the Imperial Habsburg royal family. Christina was Catherine of Aragon's niece. In the Habsburg view, Henry's marriage to Catherine was still entirely valid, and Christina is Catherine's kin. Therefore, for Henry to marry Christina, they demanded a papal dispensation. But Henry VIII had completely severed ties with the Roman Catholic Church. He had declared himself the supreme head of the Church of England, and could not be persuaded to acknowledge the Pope's authority by seeking a dispensation, especially after he was excommunicated in late 1538. This would have been a direct reversal and recognition of papal authority, something Henry absolutely would not tolerate. Consequently, Henry was forced to seek another bride, and instead he married Anne of Cleves in early 1540. Although Christina didn't directly utter those famous words of refusal, another anecdote clearly reveals her true attitude. When Cromwell's secretary praised Henry VIII as a gentle and amiable man, Christina almost burst into laughter. This unveils an intriguing truth. She was entirely aware of Henry's reputation as a wife killer, and likely felt an immense sense of relief at not having to marry him. So was escaping this fateful marriage to Henry VIII the greatest turning point, shaping Christina's later life in a profoundly different direction, free from the grim expectations placed upon the wives of the English king? After negotiations with Henry VIII and other suitors failed, Christina, at the age of 19, found a new haven. In July 1541, she married Francis, Duke of Bar, who would later become Duke of Lorraine. Unlike her first husband, Francis was only about 4 years Christina's senior, creating a more balanced age dynamic. The irony and drama of history continued to unfold here. Henry VIII, despite failing to marry Christina himself, fiercely opposed this union. His stated reason was that Francis had previously had a premarital contract with Anne of Cleves, Henry's fourth wife, whom Henry himself had used this very pre-contract as grounds to annul his marriage to Anne in July 1540. Henry declared that Anne of Cleves was Francis's legitimate and rightful wife. This was not entirely true, as before marrying Anne, Henry had been assured she was unmarried. His main reasons were Anne's physical unattractiveness and his infatuation with Catherine Howard. This incident clearly illustrates the intricate and interwoven nature of 16th century European royal relationships. Disregarding Henry's opposition, Christina and Francis seemingly shared a remarkably happy and harmonious marriage. Christina wrote in a letter just months after their wedding, "My husband treats me very kindly and has such great affection for me that I am the happiest woman in the world." They frequently visited European courts together and shared joyful moments. They also had 3 children, Charles, Renee, and Dorothea. Yet tragedy struck Christina once more. Francis lived only a few years after their wedding. In June 1545, he passed away at just 27, leaving Christina a widow for the second time at the age of 23, with 2 young children and a third on the way. According to her husband's will, Christina was appointed regent of Lorraine until her son reached adulthood. This marked a new role, full of challenges and responsibilities. So after being widowed twice at such a young age, would Christina find love or meaning in her life outside of marriage? Would her life continue to be a series of tragedies, or would she rise to become a powerful and resilient woman? In her new role as regent of Lorraine, Christina faced myriad challenges. Although she was beloved by the people of Lorraine, she endured strong opposition from the local political elite and, crucially, relentless pressure from France. The climax of personal and political tragedy struck in 1552. Henri II of France declared war on Emperor Charles V and invaded Lorraine. Despite Christina's fervent pleas, Henri II still took her 9-year-old son Charles hostage and brought the boy to the French court. Simultaneously, he stripped Christina of her regency. It was a moment of profound heartbreak. Christina knelt and begged Henri to take everything she owned, but to return her son, yet he refused. The agony of a mother losing her child, combined with political helplessness, made Christina feel nothing less than a slave. This was perhaps one of the darkest, most desperate periods of her life. Christina then had to endure a protracted period of 6 years in exile. She was denied custody of her son and could not return to Lorraine. Nevertheless, even during this time in her 20s, she retained her beauty and allure, receiving numerous new marriage proposals. But with her profound experience, all of them were firmly rejected. Her personal emblem at this time was a ruined tower with an enigmatic motto: "A ruined tower, I do not give shelter to birds." This clearly conveyed her resolute determination. No remarriage, no allowing her life to be bound once more by politically motivated unions. However, this period of exile was far from wasted. Christina rose to become a crucial diplomatic figure. In 1555 and 1557, she made visits to England, meeting Queen Mary I and King Philip II of Spain. Philip even proposed Christina marry the Duke of Savoy to persuade Elizabeth Tudor, later Queen Elizabeth I, to accept that marriage. Further proof of Christina's significant political value. The brightest point during this period was her role in presiding over crucial peace negotiations between Spain and France in 1558 to 1559. Christina's intelligence, astuteness, and exceptional diplomatic skills led to the successful conclusion of the talks, demonstrating the profound trust both sides placed in her, seeing her as impartial to any kingdom. But alongside her diplomatic triumphs, Christina also confronted a heartbreaking string of personal losses. In a short span, she witnessed the successive departures of her beloved relatives, her Aunt Eleanor, Uncle Charles V, Aunt Mary of Hungary, and her father. Would Christina ever fully regain control of her own life? Or would she forever remain a tool in the hands of Europe's great powers? In May 1558, after a long separation, Christina was finally reunited with her son, Charles, now 15 years old. Although she was later bypassed by Philip for the regency of the Low Countries, Christina eventually returned to Lorraine and still held significant influence over the governance of the duchy alongside her son. Charles, still very young, frequently relied on Christina for advice and support, even entrusting her with the regency when he was absent. With her intellect and experience, Christina harbored an even greater ambition. As her sister Dorothea was childless and past childbearing age, Christina requested her sister cede their father's succession rights to the thrones of Denmark, Sweden, and Norway to her and her son. By 1563, Christina formally proclaimed herself Queen of Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, along with numerous other titles. However, it must be clarified that despite bearing this title, she never truly ruled those lands in the literal sense. In her later years, Christina lived primarily in Nancy and Hanovre, continuing to assist her son in governing the duchy, even overcoming near-fatal illnesses in 1564 and 1568. By 1579, she decided to move to Tortona, the city she had inherited from her first husband. There, Christina spent her final years, wisely managing the city, and was beloved and respected by its people. Christina passed away in December 1590, at the age of 68 or 69, during a visit to her daughter. Her body was brought back to Nancy, Lorraine, where she was interred. The life of Christina of Denmark stands as a vivid testament to the extraordinary resilience of a woman navigating a politically turbulent world. From an exiled child to a child bride, a powerful duchess and regent and a confidant of kings, Christina experienced countless ups and downs, meeting most of the prominent figures of her era. Her story is not merely a sequence of historical events, but a profound lesson in human wisdom, adaptability, and endurance in the face of harsh destinies. She escaped Henry VIII, and in doing so, penned an utterly impressive page of history for herself. What impressed you most about Christina of Denmark? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on more captivating historical stories from us. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.